Are you going to do this here for real? I said, just loud enough to be heard over the muffled conversation and glass clinks of the investor luncheon. David Huxley, Stratagem Capital's interim CEO, stood across from me and remained unfazed. He drummed on the edge of a blue folder on the table which was mine, and which I had brought to every board meeting for the previous 6 years. He smoothed his tie as if he had practiced the sentence, "Celine, this isn't personal. It's only visuals. The board believes that fresh leadership is needed." In the midst of August, the word struck me like a cold draft. Fresh leadership. I was informed mid-canapé that I was being replaced after completing a report that had won a $14 million Series D extension. No private discussion, not a warning. He had just that calm, arrogant smile on his face as though being reprimanded at a 5-star restaurant was somehow a privilege. I surveyed the rooftop space. Other board members shifted uneasily in their chairs, flitting their gazes to their phones or beverages while feigning to check their emails. Nobody was looking at me. Cowards. I responded calmly, my fingers grazing the edge of the folder he had just taken from me. You could have at least waited until the dessert. My initials, July Projection Models, CTA, were printed on the laminated tab. My information, my proposal. David grinned. The following phase required a new face. Cheaper, younger. You are aware of how this sector operates, and there it was. There's no sophisticated explanation, simply cheaper. I clenched my jaw. The company's predictive investment algorithm was created by me. During the crypto crash, I had rescued them. Even though I had remained silent when David claimed credit for my models in front of the hedge fund representatives, they were still showing me the door. Effective right away, I inquired. For a few more weeks, the transition period will need you. He pointed to the young man 2 tables away, who was wearing an oversized blazer, and abruptly straightened up when he noticed me observing. You'll be training Carter, he said. Teach the child who was taking my place. Audacious. I gently nodded once. Yes, I said. Everything you require will be provided. He raised his eyebrows in surprise at how effortlessly I folded. I wasn't folding. I was doing some math. I placed the folder on my kitchen table when I got back to my flat that evening. Surrounded by takeout boxes and the illumination of my silent TV, it seemed almost ridiculously out of place. Every late-night strategy session, every earnings call, and every 2 a.m, that folder had been by my side. Simulation of data. It had more than simply numbers. It included ownership. Mine. Abruptly, I recalled a detail hidden in a footnote of my initial job contract. The IP provision was something legal had demanded when I joined the company as a founding member. From my Dropbox folder, I extracted the original contract. Clause 17.3. Unless specifically transferred, all intellectual property created independently before employment remains the contributor's sole property. I had built the fundamental algorithm in graduate school, which served as the brains behind Stratagem Capital's whole forecasting model. 2 years prior to signing with Stratagem, I had already exhibited it at an MIT finance symposium. I didn't move it. It was not theirs. Additionally, they never paid for the license. I had to sit down since the knowledge hit me so strongly. They had been making money off of technology they didn't legally own for all these years. All because nobody ever bothered to contact legal again. David was unaware. The board was unaware. Hell, I had almost forgotten myself. However, the U.S. Copyright Office remembered. The framed certificate was still in my closet gathering dust. I got to my feet, took it out, and placed it next to the blue folder. Their future had been in that folder. It would now bear my retaliation. I arrived at the office 2 days later as if nothing had occurred. My successor Carter was occupying my chair. When I went in, he gave me a sheepish smile and scooted over. We went over the system architecture in the morning. I purposefully skipped over the automation scripts that stabilized the algorithm as I guided him through the codebase. I wasn't trying to undermine him. I didn't have to. Since the license verification check that is deeply ingrained in my code would expire in 10 business days, the algorithm would automatically disengage. Long before Stratagem in the early beta stage, I had developed that feature. It was a straightforward kill switch that was connected to a private API key and contained in a single line of code. My key for the API. I appeared to be completely professional, friendly, be patient, beneficial, but within, they had no idea that I was silently shifting pieces on a board. The documents for the revocation were submitted. Already, the system audit logs were being archived to my private server, and I had an appointment for a private phone conversation with a tech consultant who used to be an SEC enforcement officer and owed me a favor. It was David Huxley's fault. He believed that I might be replaced. He didn't realize I was the architect as well. Furthermore, I never constructed anything without a contingency plan. I saw that Carter was still utilizing the blue folder, which was actually my blue folder, as though it were his own. Now the morning I gave him a description of the algorithm modules. I grinned. Permit him. Give him the impression that he was growing into someone. David had the gall to send me a Slack message that same morning that was only a casual, "Thanks again for being a team player," with a dumb smiley face at the end. Like a bug buzzing in a silent room, I stared at it and blinked slowly. It's not worth swatting. Not quite yet. They genuinely believed they had triumphed. A forgotten footnote that I would bow out graciously. They never considered me dangerous, I believe. They thought I was steady, predictable, secure. But they had a basic misunderstanding. Being quiet does not imply weakness. Being reserved does not imply ignorance. And when you've already been through the fire, you become peaceful. I was numb. Therefore, I wasn't at ease. I had spent my entire career preparing for war, so I was at ease. I simply didn't know who the opponent was, so far. It was a cruel week, not due to the labor, due to the quiet. Nobody spoke. HR did not visit. No farewell card, no final lunch. Not even marketing's Morgan, who once wept on my shoulder after her fiancé strayed, said. It seemed as though I had already left, as if I were a ghost haunting my own professional glass walls. It was officially my last day at Stratagem Capital by Friday. I packed slowly, a couple of books, my backup discs, a picture of my former team from year 2 when we genuinely believed we were creating something, and that fucking folder, the blue one, the one where no one has thought to pull off the tab bearing my initials. Like I was taking back a bit of myself, I slipped it into my tote bag. David didn't even bid farewell. Last quarter, they erected a new lounge, and he was too busy entertaining the PE people there. I was backslapping, laughing, and drinking $300 whiskey that I had contributed to the budget proposal's justification. On my way out, I went by the glass conference room. Inside, Carter was giving a presentation to a customer. My PowerPoint presentations, my points of discussion. I hesitated for a half second, only long enough to notice the little blunder in his justification when he was unable to respond to the client's follow-up. Fluency cannot be faked. In a system you did not create, no. When I came home that evening, I poured a glass of red wine for myself, but I was unable to taste it. In the dark, I sat on my couch and gazed out my windows at the city. All those stories, all those lights, all at once. What about mine? The credits of something I made have simply removed me. I checked my email, unread messages in the dozens. Congratulations from coworkers who were unaware of the reality. Job postings from friendly recruiters. Carter was welcomed as the new head of innovation in a mass email sent by Stratagem's public relations team. I made the click. Under Carter's leadership, we're excited to usher in a new era of technical excellence. That was the statement that broke my heart, and it was written in bold letters. I read it twice, then a third time. Superior technical performance, Carter's time. My hand began to shake, and I had to put down the wine glass. Not out of anger, from sorrow, bone-tired, deep anguish. Not due to my job loss, but because I became aware of what I had sacrificed for so long out of loyalty. Time. Time that I would never get back. Due to rollout deadlines, weekends were missed. Responding to server failure alerts on birthdays, I couldn't turn off my head long enough to connect with someone after midnight. Therefore, those relationships ended. Stratagem had abandoned me in the past, and I had constructed their future. I was still up at 2:14 a.m., sitting at my computer looking at the blue folder in front of me while wearing only an old hoodie and fuzzy socks. Now the edges were fluttering. I had taken it with me all the way to Stratagem. From our first shared office in the East Village to the Midtown Tower we currently occupy on the 30th level. The folder had made it through too many boardrooms to count red-eye flights, subway smashes, and coffee spills, and yet here it was, intact. Mine yet. Similar to the code upon which their business was founded. I grabbed my laptop. No more melancholy. Now it's just math. It's funny how easy it is to disguise intelligence when they think you're just being helpful. 6 months ago, when they asked me to back up our IP for disaster recovery, I launched the system I had mirrored from Stratagem. The kill switch procedure remained in place. The prompt to renew the license was still there, waiting hidden. The algorithm would automatically disable itself in precisely 6 business days unless the API key was renewed via my private server. What about that key? The blue folder was its home. I woke up earlier than the sun the following morning. Ever since I discovered what they had taken and how silently I could reclaim it, my brain has been awake. I turned on my laptop and heated some water for tea. I watched the mirrored system start up as the steam spiraled into the air. It had the same dashboard graphics and predictive models as the one Carter was currently using. This one, however, featured an invisible clock that ticked away behind the user interface. I had 6 days. The engine that drove Stratagem's automatic portfolio intelligence flatlined 6 days prior to the API key expiring. At first glance, it would appear to be a bug. Then there was a hitch, then a complete operational breakdown. Junk data would be thrown out by the algorithm. The risk curves would be inverted. False positives would appear on client dashboards. Additionally, they would be stuck unless they completely reconstructed the architecture, which would take months. What's the best part? There would be nothing for me to sabotage. Allow the system to function without me. I contacted Meredith Lynn, whom I hadn't spoken to in years, to make sure everything was in order. A former classmate is now a consultant in cyber forensics. In graduate school, we once constructed a sentiment analysis project that unintentionally made a 93% accurate election prediction. When she took my call, she laughed and said, "Celine Tran. I wanted to know when you would come back." I described the circumstances, with caution, actually without resentment. Why I needed aid was not a question she asked. She was aware already. I was able to verify the original copyright registration timestamp with Meredith's assistance. She assisted me in verifying that I was the only developer of the pre-Stratagem coding by looking through the CloudTrail logs. She even showed me how to preserve metadata from ancient files, the type that would be impossible to falsify or alter without leaving obvious evidence. When the call was over, I had my initial algorithm files that included time-stamped metadata, an authenticated copyright document, a mirrored history of all modifications done to Stratagem's internal development tools under my user ID. The finest part is evidence that I never signed a licensing contract with the business. Meredith remarked, "You're untouchable legally." Ethical. You're a scary person. However, I adore it. For the first time in days, I grinned. That's the objective. Throughout that week, I carried the blue folder with me everywhere. To the coffee shop, to the park, even to the dry cleaner. It was now useful rather than merely symbolic. It had printed copies of all the documents, signatures, and code that demonstrated Stratagem Capital was not the owner of the technology they were offering for sale. Each time I opened it, I was reminded of my identity prior to David Huxley sitting across from me at that table on the rooftop. Prior to the betrayal. Prior to the silent erasing. I had always been working on a project that was larger than them. They simply were unaware of it. I previously coached a junior product manager named Bethany, who had been quietly removed from promotion tracks since David took control, and she called me on day 4. "Hi," she murmured. "There's a problem with the dashboards, but I probably shouldn't be calling you. Carter is going crazy. He believes there is corruption in the data pipeline." I spoke in a steady tone. "What's wrong? All of the projections are wrong. It is producing 98% confidence scores on accounts that ought to be considered high risk. Additionally, the alert system won't sound. This indicated that the predictive model was breaking down. Right on time." Was there anything else that Carter said? He accused the development team. The cloud provider comes next. He is now inquiring as to whether there were any version control failovers. He doesn't even seem to comprehend the basic architecture, in my opinion. Naturally, he didn't. He wasn't smarter. They recruited him because he was cheaper. Bethany hesitated. You didn't, right?" I grinned. "Obviously not. I departed peacefully, which was accurate. Nothing was hacked by me. I didn't violate any rules. I just revoked an unlicensed key that was about to expire. That software was mine. I had just ceased giving them free rentals of it. Nevertheless, Bethany's call served as a crucial reminder to me not every employee in that organization should have to endure hardship. She was among the few who had made an effort to put merit ahead of ego. So I did something I didn't often do. I forewarned her, make a backup of your private documents, today. Do not hold off until Friday. A pause occurred. Thank you. Followed by that. She didn't ask any more questions. I labeled each branch, added a clean licensing statement, and uploaded my entire encrypted codebase to a secret Git repository that evening. I gave it the name Phoenix 1. I didn't want to stand in the ashes when the fire broke out. I was going to get up and reconstruct Friday, 8:42 a.m. I was already enjoying a cappuccino with cinnamon froth at a corner table at the Atrium Cafe, which is located across the street from Stratagem's headquarters. Through the glass roof, sunlight poured in, and I could see the mirrored high-rise where I had formerly lived. It occurred around 8:45 a.m. I witnessed Carter running through the lobby with his phone held to his ear like a lifeline, and his tie flying. The glass doors behind him swung open and shut quickly as team leaders hurried in with that distinctive expression, complete terror in business casual. Exactly on schedule. I slid my tablet out of the blue folder on the table after leaning back in my chair. Every 10 seconds, the private server monitor was updated. The screen was filled with error messages. The foundation of Stratagem was breaking down, failing, not crashing. The distinction was crucial. You can fix a crash. Revocation is irrevocable. My inbox was overflowing with emails from Stratagem addresses by 9:13 a.m. Topic: immediate system failure. Subbed assistance topic redacted. You're murdering us. I paid them all no attention. However, one email at 9:20 a.m. caused me to stop. From David Huxley, subject request for meeting. Please, I made a click. Celine, I understand that you have good reason to be furious. However, we must speak. We think the original codebase may be a contributing factor in the system's failure. Please, simply enter. We'll discuss conditions, pay, and anything else you'd like. David, anything I desire. It was adorable. 10 in the morning. Wearing the same blazer I had on my first day, 6 years prior, I entered the Stratagem lobby with a smart appearance. For symbolism, not nostalgia. Before Bethany showed up, security attempted to stop me. Allow her to pass, she urged. She didn't grin, she didn't flinch. However, she gave me a single nod as I went by. I entered the chaos after riding the elevator to the 29th floor. The monitors were half dark. Error warnings were blinking for the others. The phones were ringing nonstop. The media vendors and investors are all requesting answers. David Huxley stood in the middle of it all. He appeared to be 10 years older. Sweat had soiled his collar. He came running over as he saw me. Thank God, Celine. Pay attention. With a pleasant thud, I dropped the blue folder on the closest glass table while holding up my hand. I remarked loud enough for everyone on the floor to hear, let's make something clear. The code is not yours. You didn't. You never signed a formal transfer agreement, and the formula that drives your portfolio engine was created prior to my employment. David's mouth parted, then shut again. I opened the folder. I presented it page by page, using pre-employment timestamps for copyright registration, a notarized copy of my contract's Clause 17.3 important dependency checks are displayed in audit logs. Legal verification of the revocation. He appeared pallid. This is not possible for you. I did it already. Morally, legally, and with supporting documents. The fine print should have been read by you. Breathless, Carter stumbled over. Is she really capable of doing this? She did, I replied, avoiding eye contact with him. Phones continued to ring behind me. Someone shouted that Reuters was going to pick up the outage report somewhere down the corridor. The twist then appeared. With her phone raised like a press badge, Bethany took a step forward. Her voice was calm but sharp as she said, You might want to know something else. This whole discussion. It is being live-streamed. David stopped. What? She turned her screen to the other side. There were thousands of onlookers. Additionally, the comment section was harsh. This is the result of IP theft. Queen conduct. Next, sue them. Stratagem, rest in peace. Don't fire her. Hire her. That was not what I had anticipated Bethany doing. I hadn't inquired at all. But as I watched her take the chance and execute it, I became aware that something else had changed. I was no longer alone. David retreated as if the space had become radioactive. "Do you wish to engage in a negotiation?" I turned back to him and said, "All right, these are my terms." Stratagem had entered complete lockdown mode around midday. The board convened an urgent meeting. David attempted to characterize the situation as a licensing protocol misunderstanding. However, it was too late. A version of the broadcast was making the rounds on industry news forums, Reddit, and LinkedIn. The folder was seen by all. The proof. The reality. Meredith sent me a text. "The internet has officially been broken by you. 3 companies are also interested in hiring you. You are invited to keynote. However, the twist wasn't that." At 3:12 p.m., the twist occurred. David's executive assistant sent me a discreet message. "The confidential subject, Celine. Just so you know, the board was getting ready to promote you 3 weeks ago." David stopped it, stated that he desired a new story for the company. I located the draft email. "I'm sending it right now." I clicked on the attachment. It was there. A draft with the title subject Celine Tran is appointed Chief Strategy Officer, accepted, all set to dispatch. However, it was never. It had been overruled by David. I sat for a long time with that insight. Not merely treachery, erasure. I held the blue folder in my hands as I stood on my balcony that evening. It was now tattered with one tab missing soft corners and a frayed spine. However, it was still intact. As I was. New York throbbed beneath me with the same apathetic vitality that it always possessed. Yellow taxis, lights on the street. From the rooftop bar next door, there was laughter. No one down there was aware of what had just transpired. However, up here, I was aware. The capital of Stratagem was bleeding. In order to conduct an inquiry, David Huxley was put on administrative leave. In a public statement, the board acknowledged full responsibility for the breach and validated my intellectual property claim. What about Carter? Within 24 hours, he resigned. The broadcast was widely shared. Think pieces from ethical panels and business journalists alike were pouring in. Reddit, LinkedIn dubbed it the wake-up call of the decade. I was given a nickname by them, the Blue Folder's Architect. That title wasn't anything I requested. However, I merited it. I declined every employment offer that was presented to me the following morning, not with pride, uncertain. I had spent too many years creating someone else's ideal, hiding behind stability processes, and the notion that if I continued to produce devotion would be returned. However, loyalty is not a silent thing. It must be reciprocal. It must be observed. So I gave Meredith a call. I gave Bethany a call. I called several others who, like me, had been forgotten. People who had never been given the opportunity to lead, yet knew how to construct. I said to them, "I'm beginning something. No titles, no ceilings made of glass. No credit was borrowed. Just genuine ownership and tidy code." They made no hesitation. A month later, we introduced Signal North, a specialized predictive technology company focused on transparency-first AI and ethical forecasting models. Our slogan was straightforward: see what they can't. We turned a profit by the 3rd month. We were featured on the cover of Wired by the 6th month. Stratagem Capital declared bankruptcy by the 9th month. They made an effort to change course. They made an effort to reconstruct. However, the trust had vanished. Integrity cannot be incorporated into a business that was not intended to have it. I remembered the twist of the board email. David had interrupted me because I was inconvenient, not because I was incapable. Too intelligent, too obvious, too much of a danger to his leadership style. I had the option to file a lawsuit. I could have made it ugly and accepted compensation. However, I didn't, because I didn't want that win. I wanted to demonstrate something more powerful, that you do not vanish when you are deleted. Sometimes it just implies that you can start over without requesting permission. I received an invitation to present at a conference on AI innovation and ethics a year later. The worn blue folder I still carried, now laminated and maintained, was the first thing I looked down at in the green room before heading out to the stage, not to exact revenge, for commemoration. I placed it on the table after holding it up and giving it one final glance. It was no longer necessary for me. Nowadays, I speak the truth when people inquire about how I managed to remain composed in the face of treachery, silence, and erasure. I wasn't at ease. I was concentrated. Because shouting doesn't always win battles. Knowing exactly what you hold is how you win them and when to relax.